November 4th, 1036. Says the once lost and now found sheep.
God bless you. So we're looking at the system that's coming. Are you prepared? Are you aware? Do you know the stages of what is warned in the Bible that coincide with what we're seeing out here in this world today? Them speaking of their one world government, how they seek a one world leader to lead them. Or as Charles said at the Economic Forum, one man that has trillions at his fingertips, one person with all power, all authority at his fingertips. Who is he? So we know a one world leader and a one world religion. And you know this has been formed. They are forming it still, bringing it to the world. It's been signed. It's been accepted. And you can see them speaking about its laws and how it supersedes all those that have their religions. As it says in its own document, a person that adheres to their faith and its teachings, they must be rejected. So a person that holds to the Bible by their one world religion that the popes helped make, remember, you know a tree by its fruits and its deeds, and you can look him up and you'll find many fruits and many deeds by him. You understand what I speak.
Charisma News. Pope Francis, leading imams, signed covenant pushing us towards a one world religion. And that's Charisma News, telling us we're heading towards this one world religion. Hand in hand, in the symbol of interfaith brotherhood, they signed the joint documents. The Babylonian system is coming together. Does Islam teach immortality of the soul? Yes or no? Yes, it teaches immortality of the soul. Does Islam teach Mariology? Absolutely. The Marian shrines are everywhere. You go to the Middle East, you have these Marian shrines, and the Muslim people are hanging up their letters to Mary. It is nothing other than the doctrine which was espoused in Eden. And I'm fascinated how the circumstances are pushing churches and religious groups together. Macron says Notre Dame should be rebuilt with diversity, and the architect suggests an Islamic minaret. Maybe we should join the two religions together. Maybe we should have a kind of a Chrislam. France flagged more than 78,000 people as jihadist security threats in 2017, and we don't want that anymore. We want religions to come together. We want this violence to end. We want to push them together into one unity. Some people say there were all kinds of strange figures and haunting figures and Knights Templars that were visible, but it was probably just firemen walking around there. So all kinds of theories going around. France, Macron says Notre Dame should be rebuilt consistent with modern, diverse France. Architects suggest steel spire and minaret. This is one source after the other. Jesuit-educated Macron, favorite to beat Le Pen, as Catholic bishops warm to him as next president. These people are all Jesuit trained. No wonder they have such strong ties. The kings of the world will pay homage unto the beast. The Pope and Emmanuel Macron hug it out in a photo of the remarkably long meeting. What are these people discussing? And then the Al-Aqsa Mosque catches fire at the same time that the Notre Dame Cathedral is burning. And people are saying, we need to get together. This chaos has to stop. And then what happens? The world mourned when Notre Dame burned, but some saw it as an opportunity to make France Catholic again. Let's get religion back in. Let's get religion to organize society. Society is in chaos. And we have all of these mass shootings. You cannot even keep up. You put one up, it's outdated the next day, isn't it? Because there's another bigger shooting somewhere along the line. People are so tired of terrorism and all of these things. Catholic Herald, a mosque in Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates capital, has been renamed Mary, Mother of Jesus Mosque. What's happening? Is Babylon coming together?
Dylan Mulvaney. I am a trans woman and I am documenting my transition publicly on TikTok for the world to see. Mr. President, this is my 221st day of publicly transitioning.
God love it.
This is Dylan Mulvaney, a trans TikToker. And this is Joe Biden, the President of the United States, the most powerful man in the world. And before we talk more about what in the world is happening here, let's look a little more at what Dylan and President Biden talked about.
I am extremely privileged to live in a state that allows me access to the resources I need, and that decision is just between me and my doctors. But many states have lawmakers that feel like they can involve themselves in this very personal process. Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming healthcare?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that as a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong. I mean, no state should be able to do that, in my view. So I feel very, very strongly that that you should have every single solitary right, including use of your gender identity bathrooms in public.
Thank you. Thank you.
Notice that President Biden is 100% on board with and supportive of every single issue that Dylan brings up. Biden is putting himself squarely on the side of gender-affirming health care, which could, arguably, more accurately be called child mutilation. Whatever the trans rights activists want, Biden wants to give it to them. Let's keep watching.
And it feels like Republicans have turned trans and non-binary people into this thing to blame society's downfall on in some ways. And this narrative is not only dangerous to our mental health, but also our physical safety. And particularly trans women of color are being murdered at an alarming rate.
More than any other group of people.
Thank you.
And here, Dylan and Biden join together in attacking Republicans for simply wanting to defend the definitions of male, female, and marriage, and wanting to protect underage children from life-altering surgeries. And they both cite a particular statistic that is extremely dishonest.
The stuff about the trans murder rate, how trans people are murdered more than anyone else, an alarming rate, there's an epidemic of anti-trans murders, all of that is, it's a flat out lie. They're making it up. All they do is make stuff up. And what they do is they report the total number of trans people who are supposedly murdered, the total number, all of them, every single murder, and they insinuate or outright claim that they were all killed, every single one of them, in anti-trans hate crimes.
And I think that it's really important that we continue to speak out about the basic fundamental rights of all human beings. And the idea that what's going on, in some states, I won't get into the politics of it, but in some states, it's outrageous. And I think it's immoral. The trans.
He won't get into the politics of it. I love it. And that's a Catholic president, incidentally. I wonder. I have to find out if he's a Jesuit. Would surprise me if he wasn't. And that's your one world religion. That's an example of it. So this is where we're heading. This is the future.
Now, who exactly is this Dylan Mulvaney? What makes him so significant that he was given the opportunity to interview the President of the United States? Well, Dylan was recently featured on an Ulta Beauty podcast to discuss femininity.
Now I know I can find love. I know I can still be a performer. I know that I can have a family. I want to be a mom one day. And I absolutely can. And that's why the narrative still has a long way to go, because when I was grieving Boy Dylan, I didn't know those things were even accessible to me.
Remember, Dylan is a biological man who identifies as a woman, and Dylan created a TikTok series called Days of Girlhood.
Day one of being a girl, and I have already cried 3 times. I wrote a scathing email that I did not send. I ordered dresses online that I couldn't afford. And then when someone asked me how I was, I said, I'm fine, when I wasn't fine.
So Dylan identifies not even as a woman, but as a girl. And he's not even really identifying as a girl, but rather as a cartoonish, insulting caricature of a girl.
Day 66, being a girl, and today I'm in nature. Trees, I love them. Water, lakes, I love them. Heels, they're my hiking heels. I love them. Okay, come on. Coconut water, love it. Not an ad, just love it. Wind turbine, love it. Meadows, love them. I'm scared of getting Lyme disease.
Is there anything more ridiculous than Dylan's conception of a girl here?
This is narcissism run out of control, is what it is. It's the country has turned into this narcissistic carnival where narcissistic people want to see themselves on TikTok and sit in front of the president, and it's the most disgraceful president, just completely corrupt. He doesn't care at all about the working class that he's destroying. He's brain dead. He's a narcissist himself. He's also taking showers with his daughter. In her diary, he has a son who's a cokehead and sends porn videos of himself up to the internet, and the media doesn't pay any attention to this. It's all pointed in one direction, that Republicans are what? They're homophobes. So anybody who thinks that this is disturbing, it doesn't have anything to do with being transphobic or homophobic. It has to do with what kind of example are we setting for children if we have the president having a completely mentally ill person who's brain damaged in some fundamental way, just like the brain damaged president. And this is restoring America to the respect of the world? No, it's not. It's making America into a laughingstock around the whole world as people who are fundamentally childish narcissists who anything to do with obedience or parental discipline or education, studying books and being responsible in society. What kind of work is this new girl who's always going to be a girl, but is talking about having a family? How ridiculous is this? It couldn't be more obvious that this is the Babylon described in the Bible and the one world religion. So I'm on the subject of one world religion. This is part of what it encompasses. In other words, this is Antichrist. This is the one world religion of France, Pleasure Dome, and inside the Pleasure Dome of this swinging gal, this new creation that everybody's going to create their own new sexual identity and gender identity. And like we can see, the churches are corrupted with pedophilia and everything else on the menu, drag queens running around with everybody applauding as if it's RuPaul's Drag Race as part of Christianity. It's anti-Christianity, and it's completely, what's immoral is Joe Biden who is immoral. He doesn't have a concept of what morality is, and he calls himself a Catholic. it's you know, who can even imagine where this country is going to be in another 2 years? I don't know, but I think it's going to be a civil war. There's going to be a Great Depression. Robert Kiyosaki, I was just listening to him, who says at worst it will be a civil war. At best, it's going to be a Great Depression. I think it's going to be both, obviously. It's going to be a Great Depression and a civil war with vegetables in Congress who care only about their money. This is all about getting votes of this Sybaritic, Dionysian, California, of course, Seattle, wherever you have open air drug markets and people in all kinds of conditions of mental illness, that you'll find the Democratic Party mentally ill themselves. They're going to have communism now. You have Bernie Sanders and AOC and the Rolling Stone magazine and Hunter Thompson. And yeah, it's great to be a crackhead. It really, crackhead Barney is one of their activists. Medea Benjamin and her Code Pink and the pink pussy hats, and Cardi B with her wet ass pussy, and it's a debauched insanity that America's gone into. We're run by Stephen Colbert and the cast of SNL, and it has a real short lifespan at this point, and we're going downhill like a rolling stone. No, it's not gathering any moss, or like the Titanic. It's just crashing to the bottom of the sea. I've got to tell it to people straight that this is the end of this country when you have a public that can't open its mouth to say there's anything unfortunate. There's nothing going on here at all. We're just having a nuclear saber rattling against countries that are going to level us. Russia has nukes. In Cuba, they have nukes off both coasts. In Nicaragua now, they're poised to flatten the Ukraine. And we screaming about war crimes. Good luck. What are you going to take them to The Hague? If you do, we're going to have to show up with Clinton. We're going to have to show up with our Hillary Clintons. We're going to have to show up with Obama. We're going to have to, Guantanamo Bay. Anybody hear about anything? Anybody know where Guantanamo Bay is and what went on there? And those are called war crimes. What went on in Abu Ghraib prison, those are called war crimes. Bombing these civilian wedding parties in Afghanistan. Oh, we missed the target. And after we pull out of Afghanistan, we're leaving hundreds of millions of people all over the world because of this war, starving, children starving, and we have to put up with this crap. This vegetable, immoral psychopath of a president, and the religious community itself can't open its mouth. Why? Because he's a Catholic. See, that's the one world religion. Nobody's going to object to this. Or on myself and some fringe nutcases who are far right, MAGA hat wearing conspiracy theorists who hate everybody. We're just filled with hatred. Jesus was the most hate-filled person at all. He said, "Don't fornicate." He said, don't. The law of the Bible, who was written by God Almighty on the tablets of Moses, honor your father and mother. This is a mother and father situation. Biden with his corrupt family taking showers with his daughter and nobody says a word. The press, just like with Jack Kennedy, just like with Bill Clinton, the press is disgusting and despicable. They point the finger at Donald Trump and illegally violate his rights with this cooked up one impeachment trial after another, and the public just goes along with it. because the press says so. They you know, both right and left wing press. It's mainstream media because they don't want to do anything but implement this NWO. And it's coming. It's coming because there's not a bit of resistance to it. People want it. They want the Neuralink. They want Elon Musk and his Baphomet, you know, Satan, Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies with the crucifix upside down. That's what America wants, and that's what it's got, you know. This is the rule of Satan. Satan has a large confederacy, his church. Christ calls them the synagogue of Satan because the members are the children of sin. The members of Satan's church have been constantly working to cast off the divine law and confuse the distinction between good and evil. Satan is working with great power in and through the children of disobedience to exalt treason and apostasy. And who's treasonous exactly? Hunter Biden is treasonous. Why is he not on trial? Because Satan rules this country. Are the just punished? The just are punished. Julian Assange is in jail. Julian Assange is the WikiLeaks truth teller. He's in jail for life, as far as we know, for telling the truth. And at this time, the power of his satanic inspiration is moving the living agencies to carry out the great rebellion against God that commenced in heaven. At this time, the church is to put on her beautiful garments, Christ our righteousness. There are clear, decided distinctions to be restored and exemplified to the world in holding aloft the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. The beauty of holiness is to appear in its native luster in contrast with the deformity and darkness of the disloyal, those who have revolted against the law of God. And so a judgment is coming. A judgment is here, and the wrath of God is upon us. The whole world, the natural world is exploding. Australia is now losing crops, floods, prices of grain going through the roof. When we have the floods in Pakistan, we have the floods in Florida, the hurricanes sitting down and destroying. These are all signs of the end times. This is as clear as could possibly be. The controversy centers in Christendom. The so-called Christian world is to be the theater of great and decisive actions. Men in authority will enact laws controlling the conscience. After the example of the papacy, Babylon will make all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. That's Revelation. Every nation will be involved. Of this time, John the Revelator declares, these have one mind. There will be a universal bond of union, one great harmony, a confederacy of Satan's forces, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Thus is manifested the same arbitrary, oppressive power against religious liberty, freedom to worship God according to the dictates of conscience, as was manifested by the papacy when in the past it persecuted those who dared to refuse to conform with the religious rites and ceremonies of Romanism. In the great conflict between faith and unbelief, the whole Christian world will be involved. Romanism, that's the Roman Catholics, that's the Jesuit order. It's a militant order, it's a militaristic order. It's the Spanish Inquisition. They're the religious persecutors, along with the Freemasons. It's power and wealth and the control of people's minds and the keeping people corralled, keeping people masked and separated from each other, keeping people fixated on their money. That's all that really matters. Money, 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 and pleasure and pleasure and pleasure, and skipping through the tulips with little whatever her name was. And it's immoral to object to this, see? It's immoral if you object to this. So we call good evil, and we call evil good. The Borgias were good, and the people who opposed the Borgias were evil. The sex carnival and the sex scene were good. Savonarola, who opposed the Borgia popes and the decadent Romanism of the Vatican, was put to death, burned, hung, and tortured. And that's called the bonfire of the vanities. And as I was in art school, Savonarola was wicked because he was having Renaissance paintings burnt, the pagan Renaissance paintings, and he wanted a true Christianity. So we've reversed it all now. That's what surrealism is. It's anti-Catholicism. It's anti-Christianity. That's what Dadaism is. It's anti-art. It was an anti-art movement. That's what futurism is. Futurists were fascists. The person who wrote the Futurist Manifesto also wrote the Fascist Manifesto. They were all for World War I and technology. It's Satanism. All through it, the history of modern art and modernism is this total destruction. That's what's behind what Satan wants. He wants total destruction of the planet. All in the name of preventing global warming. That we're preventing global warming by having nation against nation and blowing up and trying to blow up nuclear reactor in Europe and blowing up natural gas pipelines and blowing up ships taking grain to feed poor starving people. That's our notion of fighting global warming and getting rid of cattle herds and family farms, just buying up land when the distressed farmers, just like in the Great Depression, are put out of business. It's the satanic agenda. It's happening right now, ladies and gentlemen. And it's happening with no opposition because people are just focused on their money. They got their mind on their money and their money on their mind with Snoop Dogg and on their drugs and staying as high as possible and drifting into the hobo Great Depression world where everybody's fine right up until the time that there's the Great Tribulation period, when the demonic which is rising now, will take over the whole earth, and the Antichrist will come. That's biblical prophecy, and you see it happening all around. All the other prophecies in the Bible have been fulfilled. This is in the process of being fulfilled now. This is never. People keep saying, "Oh, this is." People always think that there's going to be, the end of the world and the millennium and Y2K and all this stuff. There's nothing like this that's ever happened in the history of the world globally. Americans just look here in your little neighborhood. Well, it's not so bad as it used to be. Nuclear. This is World War III, folks. 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. Here's one that's interesting. This is a Jewish writer, conservative, David Horowitz, and this is in 2019, so it's just before the big persecution, so he's prescient here. A New York Times best-selling author is warning that Christians are in real danger of persecution by other Christians, incidentally. He isn't mentioning that, but that's who's persecuting the Christians, is the false Christians, the Hillary Clintons, the Bill Clintons, all of Hollywood. They're all Christians. Madonna's a Christian. It's pathetic. It's so obviously satanic. Biden is obviously part of the satanic agenda. That's the dark agenda, right? David Horowitz argues in his new book, Dark Agenda, The War to Destroy Christian America. It's all but accomplished because Christians are going along with it. That secularists and leftists want to turn the nation into a godless, heathen society where religion has absolutely no role. Horowitz, who heads the David Horowitz Freedom Center in Los Angeles, is used to taking controversial positions. He is the New York Times bestselling author of Radical Son and Big Agenda, President Trump's Plan to Save America. The war on Christianity is real and it's right on our doorstep. Why can't, this is a Jewish author, why can't Christians? Well, I think a lot of them are, but they're on the fringes, and the mainstream is politicized. And that's what's destroying Christianity, is the politicization of it, both right and left, neither of which have anything to do with Christianity. Jesus was not a political figure. All of this BS written notwithstanding, all this revisionism and leftist neo-historicism, it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. Who do they think they are? They think they're smarter than the people that wrote the Bible. They know more about who Jesus Christ was than Paul and the people and James and the people who lived at that time, and the John the Revelator, who knew him and had the vision and was writing the words of Jesus, and his revelations are right. That's an absolutely dead-on description of what's happening right now. If anybody bothered to pick up, like the people like the boneheads, like Elaine Pagels, and these, best-selling author, of course, because she writes a lot of bullshit. She doesn't know what she's talking about, and she hasn't read the book of Revelation against having any historical knowledge. These women or men or whoever they are don't have the slightest bit of historical knowledge to back up their postmodernist linguistic translations of the Bible, along with the mental, health crisis that's in their heads. They're up in a monastery with the writings of Toltec and the Sufi masters and Ken Wilber and Allen Ginsberg and who knows what, Chogyam Rinpoche, homosexual predators. That's what the whole scene is. Sorry, I was up there. I know what the scene is in Boulder and up in Snowmass at the Benedictine Monastery. It's a big gay bang room, that's what's going on. It's not Christianity. And I find it really offensive that these people call themselves Christians and they're heretics. Sorry, but I'm hot, like Jesus said, the cold, the lukewarm are spit out of God's mouth in the book of Revelation. The Laodicean church, he's nauseated by it. Excuse my losing my cool for 1 minute here. I'm offended for the sake of our Lord that they should all have their clothing stripped off them and put on a bloody dance suit and go to Las Vegas. If that's what they want to do, take off your priestly robes, get on your high-heeled shoes, get on your tassels, and get out to Las Vegas and go into showbiz. And then that's fine with me. That's the life you want. Do it. But these priests pretending they're Christians is nauseating. It's sickening to God. And this is exactly right to Horowitz. Can you say the catalyst for writing the book was the intolerance of the left? Can you explain? Horowitz, before I began writing the book and was becoming acquainted with all of the issues, I thought the persecution of Christians was a somewhat parochial issue. I began having sympathy for this community because the left is being so intolerant. Now I see it as a central battle. The country is at stake. The left wants a one-party state. You can see that. How can you have a resistance to a duly elected president? It's sedition, it's treason in the normal sense of the word to obstruct a president. Everything that's running the Democratic Party today is obstructionism. You can't have a democracy if you don't accept the legitimacy of an election. I mean, that is fundamental. And that's what we've had. This is a treasonous one-party state, police state, military, and they're pushing it, and they're going to push it all the way. It's a dictatorship. It's a media that lies nonstop, day in and day out, and it's a public that's both apathetic, moronic, uneducated, and indifferent. As long as they can party, they don't care if you have a democracy or if you tear up the Constitution, and that's what has happened. It's not this, he's writing in 2019, this was a warning. Now we are past the point because this immoral, illegal, illegitimate government causing immoral, illegitimate, illegal wars that are signed off on by one person, one vegetable, that commits US troops. It's not passed in Congress, nobody knows they're there, and then we find out 2 years later there's troops on the ground, and now they're going to war. There's been no announcement to the American. Why? Because the American people don't care. They're an absolutely abject, childish, like this, whatever her name was with Joe Biden. America has the perfect president that represents their intellectual level and their concern about other people in the world who is being blown up by their military weapons with their tax dollars. Henry David Thoreau went to jail before paying taxes as objecting to the illegality of the Mexican War. That's when, and he was a transcendentalist Christian. He was a Bhagavad Gita reading Christian. At least there was some concept of real Christianity, and that war is not part of what the agenda of Jesus Christ was when he came to earth, was not to tell people to pick up a sword or pick up a weapon or pick up a nuclear bomb or a drone and target civilians in another country because you want to change their way of life. So it's religious wars, and the religious war is a one world religion war. We're going to come together as this decadent papal Egyptian religion. That's what it is. It's Mystery Babylon. It's the ancient Egyptian religion. And the center of Mystery Babylon is the United States of America. If there has ever been a more decadent society with child porn and bestiality and who knows what, you can't even get anywhere near the cyberspace anymore. I can't even take what's going on the vulgarity and the just people, children. And children are watching all of this and watching their parents behave. And of course, they want to be all part of it. They get an interview with the president. It's just blown my mind. It just gets worse and worse. And that's why I say we're right on we're beginning. It's impossible for me to put a time on when it's going to be the tribulation, but you can see the Civil War. There's just an article I was looking at a couple hours ago. How many people, the vast majority of people, think we're going to be in a civil war. They're right. They're right. We're going to be in civil war because we have leadership like these lowlife people that we've elected, and nobody. They object to Donald Trump, who was a legitimately elected president, but they're not going to object to this administration that's torn up the Constitution, that's completely illegitimate, because anybody knows, we can't mention that every other president is able to challenge an election to have a recount, but this one not. So I don't believe that we live in a democracy. I've never believed this is a democracy, going back to the Kennedy theft of the election. And I gave up on politics a long time ago because this is not anything but an Orwellian police state where people are informing on each other. They're going to get social credits for doing it. There's going to be a digital currency. I just see all this stuff coming. I mean, I have no doubt that this is what is in America's future, because that's what the Americans want. They want to be on TV. They want to have surveillance cameras on them. They'll carry around a surveillance camera and have sex with each other and put it up on the internet. It's obvious that Americans want to be on TV, and they want to be dancing with the stars, and they want to have celebrity Hollywood squares, and they want to have non-stop game shows and Oprah Winfrey. So that's what we have. It's not Christianity, and God doesn't see it as having anything to do with him. And I don't believe God is here anymore in this country. He's left us to our own, just as it says in Romans. Just as it says in Romans. I'll close reading Romans, because that's exactly where we're at. It's Romans 1:21. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. You watch them all the time. All these feeds are just having pleasure in seeing people fornicating or dancing lewdly or erotically. It's nonstop. I'm disgusted by it. After becoming a Christian, after transforming my whole life, I'm not any more or less a sinner than those people. I'm saying get out of that Babylon, because Jesus is coming. Jesus could come at any time. The rapture could come at any time. The pre-tribulation. Laugh all you want at Christians. I laugh at them too. I think most of them are phonies. That's what they are. They're con artists and they're phonies. I think the vast majority of Christians are phonies, but that does not invalidate the Bible. It doesn't, just because you have all these false messiahs and false Christ and phonies like you have in the White House and in Hollywood and all over this country, doesn't mean that this isn't the Word of God. God bless everyone and amen. And may God be with you, and may God come to you if you're in this kind of condition where you think that there's nothing wrong with a lifetime of drug addiction, child sex change, children's changing their sex. When did that, what society has ever done that? I can't imagine. That's against the natural order of things, even if you don't believe in the Christian God. What other religions believe in that besides this pagan mutilation? They're screaming about women, genital mutilation of women cutting their clitorises off in Africa, but it's okay to do it if you castrate a male or whatever is done. I can't even imagine what they're doing. I just, I'm too old for this to be in this country anymore. I'll tell you that much.